So today was your first full day of camp. Florida is as hot as you remember, isn't it? Man, it was hot today. Hotter, as Ian says. Today was a good day. I saw a lot of you guys go in the pool. I saw somebody do a belly flop today that was incredible. I saw a video of it. I don't remember who it was. Who was that did the belly flop? Everyone? I thought you showed me the video. Did you not? I don't remember who it was, but it was like full out layout. We need to have like a belly flop competition. I think I can do a better belly flop than Drew. I'm just saying. What do you? I don't know. I think I can beat Drew. We're gonna have to have a competition later. What do you guys think? I heard yesterday you guys had great conversations in your all small groups, and today I pray and I hope that the conversations continue and go a little bit deeper. These small groups here is something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. When I went to camp, I went to a camp called Bluegrass Christian Camp right outside of Lexington, where I decided to go into ministry, and I still remember my counselors to this day. I still interact with them to this day. And the conversations that I had on those nights, I still remember to those days, so I would encourage you to take them to heart. I encourage you to go into them full-heartedly, and you will not regret it, I promise. I encourage you to pray with one another, and to encourage one another, and to push each other into a deeper relationship with one another. But yesterday we started the story in the book of Exodus, where Moses had this interaction with God that we started. And we started to learn a little bit of who God is. We started to learn the I am statement of God. But at the end of that, we see that God is calling Moses into his story. And he kind of starts to question his effectiveness, we see. We see that he really doesn't want to go into what God wants to do. Basically, the question is, he asks, is like, why me, God? Why in the world do you want me? You know, like, how many of us do that today? I find myself all the time questioning just how effective I am in everyday life. In my relationships with my friends, in my ability to lead a ministry. There's so many different things, and it's crazy whenever I see you guys and talk to you guys, how many of you also think of that you're not very effective in your daily life, and how many of you guys just hold this anxiety and fear every day, that you don't think that you're good enough at all. It's crazy how in today's society that is such a prevalent thing. Day after day, we get up and feel like we're just not good enough. We see who God is, and we see that the relationship that we should have, but for some reason, we just feel like, I'm not good enough. I can't enter into that story. I know what He wants me to do, but because of my past failures, my past experiences, maybe my mouth, I just feel like I'm not good enough. Why would God want me? God, I'm nothing. I've asked that many times. I'm messed up. I've messed up time and time again. But for some reason, you still want me to go into this story, but I don't think I'm effective enough. Paul, one of the leading evangelists of his time, and the writer of most of the New Testament, says this: we know that the law is spiritual, but I am unspiritual, sold to the slave of sin. I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living within me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing. Paul is saying that he's not good enough. One of the leading evangelists, the person that brought the gospel to so many people day in and day out, he still looks at God's plan and says, God, I'm just not good enough. God, I can't do it. I tried to do it on my own, and I keep on failing, and I just don't want to do it. I try so hard, and I just keep on failing. I'm going to tell you guys a story. The summer after my freshman year of college, that was 2011, the summer of 2011, I signed up to be an intern for Bluegrass Christian Camp. I loved my time there with the counselors, and actually the person leading here, John Kelly, he was leading worship that night, those weeks, and I loved it, and I wanted to be a part of what was going on there. And I was the only Bible college student there, and I desired to do ministry. I wanted to do it so bad, and I knew that God was calling me to do ministry. So when I got there, I found out that my job was to be one of the counselors, like in the dorms with the student, but I was also in charge of the staff, like the other counselors as well. So if they had any issues, spiritual, just that they need anything like a Band-Aid or thing, they would come to me and I would kind of help them find it or just walk them through different situations. I was kind of the catch-all for the person in charge. And I absolutely loved it. And when I got there, I realized something. I realized that these people that were also counselors with me were leaders in their youth group, and they just spent time pouring out, and they were always the people, even though they were great Christian leaders, they were always the people that people went to so that they could talk to. And they never had the time to just sit back and talk about their faith. It seemed like they were just listening and pouring out and pouring out and pouring out. And by the time the summer hit where it's time to pour out to the campers, like you guys, they had nothing left. I mean, I saw counselors come in and just like physically and emotionally exhausted, waiting for a 9-week-long camp season. So what I did is I decided that I was going to meet and encourage and pray with these counselors every single night as much as they needed. After the campers go to bed, it was probably around 11 or 11:30, I would stay up and I would ask if anybody wanted to pray. I would ask if anyone had any biblical questions. I would ask if anyone had any spiritual conversation that they just might want to work through. And I did it for an entire week, and I remember getting back after that week, only getting about 2 to 3 hours of sleep every single night, and I was exhausted. I was like physically ill for the fact that I didn't have enough sleep. You know how maybe some of you guys yesterday, I know some of you guys, you didn't get enough sleep on the bus and you just felt off, like you felt kind of gross. Well, I just felt like that for all of weekend. And I remember talking to Kaylee, who's back there, who we were dating at the time, and I was like, I don't want to go back. I feel awful. I feel like I failed this camp. I feel like I can't be effective week in and week out if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to pour into the other counselors. You know, how many of us do the same? We see something that is good. We feel like God is calling us to do something, and when we try to do it on our own, we fail. And we ask God, like, how in the world can I sustain this? God, you want me to do this. You want me to be a part of your story, but I just can't keep on going. And I think Moses, as we continue the story in Exodus, experienced that for the very first time. We learned yesterday that Moses, by his experience of killing the Egyptian, where he wanted to stand up for one of his people, where he felt it was right to not allow somebody to be beaten, and he ended up hurting the situation more by killing the Egyptian. He felt like he failed God, and God is calling him to enter back into his story. He's like, hey man, I've already failed once, I don't want to start it again. And that's where our story picks up in Exodus 4, 1 through 10, and this is what it says. Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is it in your hand? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses reached out and took it and took a hold of the snake, and it turned back into the staff in his hand. This, said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Then the Lord said, put your hand inside of your cloak. So Moses put his hand inside of his cloak, and then when he took it out, his skin had leprosy on his hand. It became white as snow. Now put it back into your cloak, he said. So Moses put his hand back into his cloak, and then when he took it out, it was restored. It was healed. Then the Lord said, if they do not believe you or pay attention to the first signs, they may believe the second. But if they do not believe these two signs or listen to you, take water from the Nile and pour it on to the dry ground. The water you take from the river will become blood on the ground. Moses said to the Lord, pardon me, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. In this story, we see a completely defeated Moses. A Moses that has no confidence in his life whatsoever. Because of his past experiences and his failures, he has no desire to enter into this because he thinks that he is going to fail once again. You know, how many of us are like Moses today? We see something that we should do, but we rather not do it because of that chance of failure that we might experience. This summer, I wanted to quit. I really did. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to see the other counselors that I poured my entire life in for the entire week because I felt like I failed them. I felt like I couldn't sustain it, and I thought if I went back and they saw me, they wanted to probably have those conversations again, and I didn't think I could handle it at all. But because I signed up, I thought I should be faithful to what God had called me to do. And I remember sitting down and prayed something. I said, God, if ministry is going to happen, then it's only going to be by you working through me to make your will be done. There is no way that I'm going to be able to sustain the relationships and sustain this pouring out day after day. God, it has to be you working through me. And I remember I went back the next week. It was week 2 out of 9. And I continued those conversations day in and day out. When the students went to bed, I got up and I asked if anybody wanted to pray and have any conversations. And I averaged about 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. And not once did I feel tired the rest of the summer. I spent 8 weeks, average of 2 to 3 hours of sleep. And not once did I ever feel tired or fatigued for the rest of the year. And I realized something that summer. And when I came upon this story, it's just funny that we're speaking on this tonight. When I was looking at this story and reading this story, I realized that if you allow God to work through you, amazing things will happen. If you allow God to work through you in His plan that He has already called you to do, crazy things might happen and even miracles might happen. I think God is trying to show Moses here that, look, the very first time you try to do it on your own, but this time I have your back and I'm going to do amazing things through you. I'm going to ask the band to come back up as we continue worship. I think we always judge situations on whether or not it is good for us. I think we walk into certain situations, and even though we know they're good, we will only judge whether or not it turned out to be good if we feel in ourselves that we did a good job. I know this for a fact because every time we have a week of camp, every time we have a fall retreat, every time we take you guys somewhere, me and Drew sit down and be like, hey, is it good? Was it good? And we have to answer the question, was it good because we thought it was good, or was it good because we allowed God to do something incredible during that weekend or during that week? If you try to do God's work on your own, you will fail every time. But the good thing is that we serve a good God and an awesome God that wants to be a part of your life every single day. And we need to make sure that we don't stop at anything but to allow God to come into our life so that we can enter into His plan. Because if you allow Him to do that, crazy things will happen. I'm going to ask you guys to stand as we continue in this worship today and just sing how good God is.